now you go to that parking lot and, some of the major hecklers that can't really afford it, they're looking at their superstar, like a Brett Simpson or a Timmy Reyes. Like, these guys all have Camburg suspension on their trucks. And, to throw out the name, Timmy Reyes is one of the world's top surfers, traveled for years. Now he's a traveling surfer, so he's just still getting paid to be a surfer. He's not really even on the tour. And a Brett Simpson's won the U.S. Open, and he's a big ambassador for Hurley clothing. And he's given back to the youth. And he's a kid who grew up with a professional football player for a father. And so just rad people. And then, you go to Volcom and Hurley and Electric and Stance Socks, and everyone there has Camburg suspension, or there's employees at these places with Camburg suspension. And it's just become such a standard to fix up your truck if you have a truck, right? And if people are making a couple extra bucks, people want the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's definitely pretty fun to see.
You said a very compelling line, and I agree with it, and it's almost second nature for me, or I guess it really is second nature for me, and I know it is for you. And that's where you said, you have to see the path of progression. And we've had a lot of great conversations about that within our own industry of racing together for our sponsors. Like, hey, here's the path that these sponsors, gosh, we wish they would look at it this way, because that's how you and I see it as entrepreneurs. How do we teach that to people that maybe they're on the cusp of being entrepreneurs? How do we teach them to find their path or look for that path? Because as I know and that path is always there, right?
The path is always there, and there's not just one path. I truly feel, the term that kids get today, ADD, right? They want to pump them full of medication. I embrace that, like, my son's kind of a spaz and loves to have fun. He's a really good student, and I could have been a good student. My wife was a great student. I just wasn't, having parents focusing me on that path, where my wife and I are like, our kids are on that path, but at the same time, we give them freedom to be them. I feel like a lot of kids have a lot of rules, and their parents, shun the idea. I was opposite. My parents encouraged the ideas. And I think with people is like, if you love video gaming, right? And my friend Nick Carpenter, grew up with him. He was really big in the video game world. He just started a company called Bonfire Studios. Very successful. Surfer kid, same thing. Lived downtown Huntington Beach. Very successful individual now. Starts this big video game company. But he's an artist, and he was into video games. Well, if you're into video games and you see a path, it could be anything from selling the video games, right? So someone could be a rep for Sony PlayStation. Someone's got to go call on customers to sell those, right? Or you could work in the studio that creates the games, or you're just really good at it. You just have to be passionate about it, and you have to find your path. The path can't be sitting at home with a headset on just playing the game all day, right? You got to bring that into, like, how does this make me money? Well, some kids are on YouTube, and these kids are on YouTube streaming their videos, making money because they have millions of subscribers. Well, they're making money playing video games.
Yeah.
Some kids are competing, right? And I'm using video games because that's the number one thing the parents say, get off the video game, right?
Yeah.
But if you're an auto mechanic, or you're a fabricator, you're a welder, you're a machinist, you like designing and engineering. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I know engineers that go through school to be an engineer, and they don't have the practical experience, where I try to tell people life is schooling. Experience is schooling. So if you have experience and you know how to draw in SolidWorks and you know how to program a CNC machine, you don't have to go to school to be very successful financially. In some cases, you could make more money. But if you have both, that leads to other things. But sometimes other things is a corporate environment that only pays so much versus the private, and like a Camburg. Like, if I have a machinist working here who can program machines and get them running, and he's making me money, he's making money.
Yeah, sure.
Because we need him. And I've seen people start from the ground up, turn into partners in businesses because that business needs them that much.
Well, again, I think the important lesson here is knowing and finding that path. It's interesting. I've got a client I'm working with right now. He owns a company called Excelsior Films. He did a short called The Price of Getting High, and it won all these awards. And he says, look, I want to go off and do some more films. We want to start this company. We want to raise all this money to start the company. And he was so focused on raising money for the company. I said, hey, why don't you find some sponsorship for your next film because you've already had success and make that your capital raise through sponsorship instead of just traditional money. He's like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And you and I have lived in that world of sponsors and building their businesses while it's building and creating a path for both of us within the sponsorship world. And I think you've done so well at that, not only for yourself, but really for your sponsors. But it's all about finding that different path and creating success out of that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you say that because, you look at companies. I worked at a mountain bike company right before I started Camburg, and this company is called Power Post. Really big on seat positioning. So a little thumb lever and the seat would move back and forward. And the guy was, his name's Michael Holman. He's still in business. Now he owns this big machine shop. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so long story short, he's such an avid engineer and he's got these crazy ideas and he's a smart business guy. But he was so focused on the mechanics of what he's providing the rider mm-hmm. versus I see that there's like that hardcore audience is 1% of the crowd.
Yeah.
But everyone else buying a full suspension mountain bikes because they're just an enthusiast. So you make money off the enthusiast. You get your pro rider on the product and hopefully he's winning races and your product's helping him win. But it's really about the enthusiast. And so back then I'm like, why doesn't the seat just go up and down? Mm-hmm. So raises and lowers. Oh, that's a dumb idea. And I'm like, no, I think that's what everyone wants. Well, he's trying to sell his product and he's trying to raise money from, the owner of Rock Shocks and the owner of Specialized and the guys at GT. And it's just trying to raise capital so he can sell, 25,000 units. Right. And I'm sitting here as the sales marketing guy going to Super Go bikes and going to the bike shops that would never carry his product. And now getting them to carry a $400 seat post and buy it for $280. Mm-hmm. Well, he's trying to get these companies to buy 20,000 units at $80. And I'm like, why don't we do 4,000 units at $280 and you're making way more money because you have less employees and overhead and you don't have anyone owning a piece of your business. Well, he didn't see the same path. Well, I'm getting these guys wanting it in the bike stores and he's kind of scratching his head. And so what you said just kind of hit on that where, he had this deal with Tioga, 10,000, 15,000 units, whatever the number was, for such a low price. And I'm like, man, what it would take to complete that. And he's got this Excel spreadsheet printed out. This is back in 95, 96. The whole spreadsheet's printed out across tables of how at the very end of all this up and down jargon, he's making, $23 a unit. Yeah. 10,000 units.
Yeah, sure.
So he's focused on the $1 million deal that's never happening. And here I'm selling units where he could just do a few thousand of them and make the same money and have like a quarter of the employees.
Yeah.
Well, and so that to me was the writing on the wall. And that's when I started Camburg, right? Like if I'm going to have my own ideas and live my path, I have to be in control of it.
Yeah. So, and I diverted you a while ago about that. So you and Jason connect, you realize you need to be doing your own thing. How did that story unfold once you brought up to Jason about wanting to do your own thing?
Yeah, so Jason worked at a place in Costa Mesa, California called BMP Fabrication. And my nickname for the shop was Hot Rods to Curtain Rods. Like the dude would literally do anything to make a dollar. Mm-hmm. He's your typical fabrication shop. The sign on the outside of the building says welding. Mm-hmm. And every guy walking into his door wanting something welded was a gardener saying, fix my broken lawnmower for $20.
Yeah.
In the meantime, he's got tons of people coming in the shop, bringing off-road trucks, back in the Lorana days, in the Score days. And he raced a Class 10 car. Guy named Brady Helm had his truck built at FabTech. Then it went over to BMP, and that's when that truck got real successful. And that truck Jason was fabricating on. Jason was extremely talented, way ahead of his time. And so the product Jason was building on these trucks, all custom stuff, was getting Brady Helm as Lorana championship. And then Brady Helm and Bob Graham turned into partners racing this little Toyota truck as a 7S truck. And that's the truck that wound up being the General Tire 7S Toyota, same truck. Mm-hmm. So he was building little Rangers and building all kinds of stuff. And these were the guys we were looking up to. And I'll never forget, Brady Helm was a really cool dude. I knew him when he worked at Huntington Surf and Sport. But what I learned real quickly as we were starting Camburg is he's your typical racer. He's trying to get sponsorship and get money so he can live his dream of racing, right? So all he's trying to do is suck dollars out of people so he can get your cash to put into his truck to enter the race. But what's he offering people, right? So I learned from working with these guys, like, I don't want to be the guy asking a sponsor to give me money just so I can race. I want to be the guy that's racing a truck that's providing an outlet of media for the sponsor, so the sponsor gives me money so I can tell the story the sponsor can't tell because the sponsor doesn't own the race vehicle.
Yeah.
So that was the big difference of why I think sponsorship's been successful for us. Plus, I've been hip on technology with, photography and video and computers way ahead, right? So we had our first website. We had, the Sony Mavica M91. Google that thing. Floppy disk goes in the side, digital camera, when everyone's like, digital will never take over film. And the second I heard someone say that, I said it already did. I went back to Huntington High School and gave my photo teacher all of my film cameras, all of my developing, everything I owned that was film related. I just handed to him.
Uh-huh.
And he looked at me like I was crazy. He goes, this is like a couple $1,000s worth of equipment. I'm like, well, it's a donation. Have it. Thanks for teaching me how to shoot pictures, but I'm digital now. And he laughed at me going, it'll never take over.
Yeah.
2 years later, no joke. This is 1997, 98. 2 years later, he's like, hey, I bought a digital camera. You were right. 2 years, and in the same time, where's Kodak and Fujifilm and all these companies today, right? But I just had a good eye for what's now, with technology. So anyways, Jason, we'll go back to BMP. He's sitting, I pull up, and we've already talked about starting our own company. And I actually approached his boss and said, hey, I want to partner with this business and let's start making off-road product. And his exact words were, there's no money in off-road.
Mm-hmm.
Those were his exact words. And so he was just, a bitter older dude. I mean, he's probably about 45 years old at the time. And Jason and I were like 20, 21. Yeah. Jason's under some old Chevy, because back to hot rods to curtain rods, he's got these full off-road race builds that he's not focusing on. Jason's literally doing a transmission service on some old Chevy truck. He's literally got tranny fluid dripping in his hair. I'm looking at him and I go, this is why we need to start our own business. And he goes, I'll call you later.
Good
so
timing.
He calls later. He goes, I put in 2 weeks. Let's do this. And from day one, it was an ad in the Recycler, and it was a small little square ad in the back of Off-Road Magazine. And the reason why I did that small ad in the back of the Off-Road Magazine is you had Fab Tech and Downey, and then there was this company called Dufco. And Dufco had this little square ad in the back that just said Toyota Truck Suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same ad, and I said Ford, Toyota, Dodge, Nissan, Chevy, right? Same ad, just we catered to more trucks. Well, the phone rang. Little bit of business. Guy would call. We don't make that, but I'd call AutoFab or Fab Tech or Downey, order the parts, install them. Then we wouldn't do what they did. We always went to the race truck and we gave the Heim joint radius arm TIG welded, but over the counter. You could come to me and buy it. Well, one thing led to another, and now AutoFab's supplying me and Fab Tech's supplying me and Downey's supplying me product that we're private labeling or parts of the kit, which then turned into the volume's high enough. So now iBox Springs making my springs, and now we're a Bilstein shocks distributor, and we're a Hella light distributor. And, the red ringed Hella HID lights were like way ahead of their time. I'm selling those to Robbie Gordon Racing, but I'm this little off-road shop in Huntington Beach. Well, that's my sales experience working at Rod Mill and Motorsport.
Yeah.
Jason's a talented fabricator. And I'm like, look, we're not going to build one of these. Every time we custom build one, make a jig and make two more.
Yeah.
Put them on the shelf.
Jerry,
and all of that. Yeah.
How much money did you guys start with, and what was the size of your first shot? Because I can already tell where this is going. I mean, I know the end of the story here, but it seems like immediately you guys had a little bit of success.
Yeah, immediately. So we started with a 6-month lease.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Kevin Jones, he had a Ford Bronco. And so the whole thing was, hey, we're building Kevin's Bronco. That's our project.
Okay.
Well, that project turned into at the time, Kevin's girlfriend was one of the original employees in